Hi, you're on the Bible Forum. We're here every Sunday night to talk to you about life from a biblical perspective. Very often I find people writing, responding to things that I've said, saying, as the Bible shows the Bible, you ought not be talking about politics, you ought not be talking about finance, all that. The Bible talks about all these things, and we always take what the Bible says and hold it up next to what the world is doing as an illustration. So it's perfectly normal. Right now, one of the big issues that's pushing people, and there's a lot of conversation about it, is the 14th Amendment. Now, the 14th Amendment guarantees our basic rights. It prohibits states from passing and or enforcing laws that abridge our privileges and or our immunities. It guarantees basic rights like depriving any person their life, their liberty, or their property without due process. It protects against denying any person within its jurisdiction equal protection of the law. The persons that are being discussed here are citizens of these United States. And the question today seems to be just who are citizens? People born in this country, are they citizens? Or people born within the confines of these United States? A Fox News commentator by the name of Michelle Malkin is warning against the increase in disease arising from the illegal aliens crossing our southern border. Now, the truth is, according to the Centers for Disease Control, quote, most experts agree that testing for tuberculosis, hepatitis B, and HIV should be performed for most new arrivals to the United States. Clinicians should also make a habit of ensuring that this screening has been done for every new non-U.S. born patient they see, regardless of time since the person's arrival. This is part of a CDC report. But at the same time, actual public health experts across the Southwest have reported a rise in drug-resistant TB, a rise in dengue fever. And it's not just a unique situation. In June, Australian public health researchers reported that scabies, long considered a disease of the past in the developed world, is making its way back. The scientists pointed to mass global migration as a leading factor, noting scabies outbreaks among refugees to the European Union and along America's southern border. In Germany, federal epidemiologists reported that since opening the floodgates to migrants in 2015, data show, quote, increased incidences in Germany of adenoviral conjunctivitis. Also, 33 serious, many communicable diseases are being reported. Things you may not have even heard of. Botulism, chickenpox, cholera, cryptosporidiosis, dengue fever, echinococcus. Didn't say that right, but it's too many C's and O's. Enterohemorrhagic E. coli. Giardia, I can't pronounce that one. I can't pronounce that. Influenza, hantavirus, hepatitis, hemorrhagic fever, HIV, AIDS, leprosy, louse-borne relapsing fever, malaria, measles, meningococcal disease, meningoencephalitis, mumps, paratyphoid, rubella, shigellosis, syphilis, toxoplasmosis, tuberculosis, tularemia, typhus, and whooping cough. Things that the Western world hasn't dealt with in 1,000 years. Here at home, the argument is about our 14th Amendment, which most Americans believe gives the children of foreign nationals born in the United States the right to citizenship just simply because they've been born here. Now, the truth, as usual, is, well, inconvenient. You see, the 14th Amendment repudiated the Dred Scott decision of 1857. This ruling of the Supreme Court, this Dred Scott ruling, legalized the idea that a black person, even if born free, could not claim rights of citizenship under the federal Constitution. And so under the 14th Amendment, they changed all that. That amendment states, no state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. It views, quote, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdictions thereof to be citizens of the United States and of the state wherein they reside. End of discussion. No. The intent of this amendment was to stop state governments from discriminating against black Americans. And it played a key role in many landmark civil rights cases. It was originally designed to protect the rights of slaves in the South after the Civil War. Now fast forward to the 1960s, to the Lyndon Johnson era. In the Civil Rights Act of 1964, Congress drew on the 14th Amendment's prohibition of making or enforcing any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States. The next year, it was used to pass the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Today, the protections of this law are being extended to people who are in this country unlawfully. Advocates are equating this to traveling families, vacationing in this country, and then birthing a child. If you were a citizen of another nation and you came here for vacation, your child was born here, is that child a U.S. citizen? Well, if you're in the Western Hemisphere, the answer is yes. Now, ironically, the only nation that doesn't do that is Colombia. And all these people coming for Colombia. If you are somewhere else, if you go to a country other than a Western civilization, can you do that? No. Is this the same as sneaking into a country? Swimming across the border? Climbing a fence? Hiding in a truck? No. All of those activities mark you not as a traveler, but as a criminal. You're not a visitor. You're not an immigrant. And the law is intended for those who legally migrate or have vacationing here. We have untold millions of very poor people living thousands of miles away, not connected by a land bridge to the richest nation in the world, meaning the US of A. The leadership of their countries are slowly squeezing their economies to death, impoverishing more and more ordinary people. From the outside, it appears the leadership of these countries don't care about anyone who isn't wealthy. It takes a truly hard-hearted person to not feel sorry for these people. Not the wealthy ones, the poor ones. But at the same time, the United States cannot feed, house, and provide jobs, medical care, and security to 2 billion people who have needs and sneak in, swim across the border, fight their way in. And America is a nation of laws. Meaning if you apply for asylum or you apply to immigrate here, we will consider your application and your circumstances. If you rush the gate, you flood over the border, you're a criminal. The laws as they stand, no doubt factor all this in. The lawmakers, sympathetic to the plight of these people, are risking great harm to this country by setting those laws aside under the guise of this mythical 14th Amendment. I say mythical because it exists, but not the way they say it does. But that is exactly what we have done for the last 60 years or so, ever since a liberal Democrat president and administration redefined the 14th Amendment to include wetbacks and anyone else who managed to sneak in. The president of that day was Lyndon Johnson. The U.S. Supreme Court upheld this law, even as it legitimized criminals. Why? Well, it was an emotional issue, and it was a voting issue. And the Supreme Court, no doubt, was dominated by liberals, political liberals. There's a great difference between immigrants lawfully being granted entry and people simply overwhelming the borders and flooding in. And if you can't see the difference, you're admitting to a serious mental deficiency. Or being plain ignorant of this law and the application, or you've got an ulterior motive. If the liberals cared about these people and their poverty, they would not work as hard as they do to impoverish the average legal citizens within their districts with confiscatory laws. But then there's the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act, which quickly followed. The next 45 years saw a liberal Democrat Congress consistently passing more and more giveaway laws to keep their new voting bloc both happy and in the fold. What was passed as a morally necessary law quickly became a great drain on society, and the communities that seemed to suffer the greatest were those the liberals and progressives seemed to love the most. I believe that President Trump will no doubt follow through with his plan. It'll be very interesting to see how the High Court rules this time around. Should the Supreme Court rule in favor of Trump, look for a chorus of "I told you so's" to echo from the left side of the aisle and across this land. Those who complain the loudest will often be those who benefited the most from this twisted view of the 14th Amendment that we have just come to accept, but was never real. Adults are parenting the family. They're trying to put it back where it belongs. I pray they will.